friends, welcome back. Glad to have you again. It's so good to be with you. Today's video is going to be on bedtime routines. So I'm Dorit Shoshani, for those of you who don't know me. For those of you who do, thanks for coming back. Today we're going to talk about bedtime routines, which I feel are very widely misunderstood. So bedtime routines are not a sequence of events. They are not a sequence of events, guys. I know that that's really what most people think. It's like all those things that we do before going to sleep. That's not the bedtime routine. The bedtime routine needs to be intentional. And if you guys know me, if you've been following me, if you've taken my online course, if you're, watching my channel, then you know that routines, in my opinion, are opportunities for connection. So a bedtime routine is no different. And going through a sequence of events is not an opportunity for connection unless those events are intentional. So a bedtime routine is also not demands from our child. Okay, so some people say to me, oh, we have the worst bedtime routine. It's like my child is constantly demanding things from me, telling me he wants more water, telling me he needs a tissue, telling me he wants his giraffe, telling me he wants... That's also not a bedtime routine. A series of events or a sequence of events leading up to bedtime is not a routine, and a bunch of demands from your child is also not the routine. Okay, the last thing that a routine is not is this long, drawn out, never-ending together time that turns sour, which is what I hear a lot. It's like, I'm trying to do this really nice bedtime routine for my child, and it just goes on and on and on and on and on, and then it goes bad, and then I end up getting frustrated, and I end up getting upset, and sometimes I even show that to my child. Like, I might get short, or I might just have a different tone of voice. And then I feel guilty about that. But what do I do? Because this goes on every night. It's like this long, drawn-out process. Well, that's because we don't know exactly how to go about doing a bedtime routine that's going to be wholesome and yummy and great for everybody involved. Okay? So what is a bedtime routine now that we know what it's not? A bedtime routine is intentional moment of connection before separation. So sleep is the ultimate separation, guys. Sleep is where we disconnect. That's normal. It's not bad. We don't need to feel guilty. We don't need to be like, how am I going to do this? It's okay. We just disconnect. You don't feel that way when you stop eating. Oh, well, maybe sometimes I do, but that's for a different conversation, right? But you don't feel that way when you stop eating because you know you're going to eat again later. What would happen if there was no food later? How would you approach that meal? Oh my God, we'd be hoarding food. We'd be scrounging around, sticking stuff in our pockets, making sure we have as much food as possible because God forbid there might never be any food anymore. So is that how you're acting around sleep? Is that what you're doing during your bedtime routine? You're so scared from the disconnect that you just keep it drawn out as long as possible because you're so scared to disconnect? A bedtime routine is an intentional moment of connection before separation. That's the routine. So what are you doing before separation? How are you making that yummy? How are you making that a deposit? Remember emotional deposits? If you don't know what an emotional deposit is, then you either haven't watched that video, and if you haven't, go watch it. If you'd like to know more about all this wonderful stuff around connection, take my online course, guys. There's a wealth of information there around connection with our children. That's ultimately what we want. And that's why everybody's not sleeping, because they want connection. But they don't understand that connection and separation go together. So if you're interested in learning more, guys, I invite you to check out my online course. It's fabulous, really. And that's non-biased. Well, maybe a little biased, but that's okay. So what we want to think about is that we're doing something intentionally and that we're taking the time that we want in order to connect with our child before separation. So think about that. What does that look like for your child? First of all, how old is your child before we discuss how long it's going to be? Because if you have a 4-month-old, your bedtime routine is not going to look like it would with a 4-year-old. And it's not going to look like what it would be with a 14-year-old. So how old is your child? And based on how old your child is, we can then discuss what's appropriate for that age. The next thing we want to make sure is that the bedtime routine is going to be like a wind down before going to sleep. So it should be calm, and it should be nice, and it should be yummy, and it should be connecting. But it shouldn't be like giggles and tickling and running and doing stuff like that, throwing your child up in the air. It's not going to be a good bedtime routine. We want to have something that's kind of like the natural process of winding down. So you can think about how you want to set the stage for that. but that definitely should be a component of your bedtime routine, that it winds the house down, that it winds your child down before we're going to separate. Okay. And then we also want to make sure that it's something that we look forward to. So not just I look forward to that, but my child looks forward to that. And that's going to be the experience if you are intentional around your routine. So for example, if you're doing a bedtime routine with a 4-month-old, then it's most likely going to be something where your child is in your arms, you're singing them a song or saying a prayer to them, and then you put them down. And it's going to be that short, probably no more than 3 minutes, because they don't have the stamina to be able to enjoy such a routine when they're already tired. And if you hold them for longer than that, they might just fall asleep on you, which defeats the purpose. So you want to be intentional around how you set up that routine depending on your child's age. Now, generally, I find that children like to sit and read books more or less the age of 15 to 18 months is where children can really have the stamina to be able to sit and enjoy reading books before bed. Before that age, I used to read my kids books in the bath. So they would be in the bath right before bed, and I would read stories in the bath because they were engaged enough in the bath. Bath was always a pleasant experience for my children. So while they were enjoying themselves, I could read them stories. And then when it was already time to get out of the bath and to get dressed, then they would start losing it already because they'd be too tired to sit and read a story. Okay, so pay attention to the cues your child is giving you, and make sure that you're setting up a routine that's appropriate for your child's age. Because trying to read 3 books to a 6-month-old is not going to work. Unless you're saying those books by heart and your child is being held, it's most likely not going to create a positive dynamic before bed. Okay, so again, we said with a younger child, you want to do a shorter routine. With an older child, anywhere from 1.5 years and up, you can probably really, really enjoy those bedtime routines. You can do at first it might be 1 book, and then all of a sudden they're a bit older and have more stamina. You can do 2 books, and then maybe even 3 books around the age of 3 years old. And that becomes super nice. It's just a wonderful time to connect with our children before we need to separate from them. Okay. And then if you have a teenager, like I do today, I actually go to bed before him. So then you don't have a bedtime routine, right? So you just want to be aware, how old is your child, what you're trying to accomplish, and that it really matches the age that your child is currently at. Okay, so don't compromise on bedtime routine, guys, because this is a wonderful opportunity for connection before we separate, which is huge. And then another thing I can just maybe bring up here is that when we orient our child, okay, orienting our child means that we're telling them about what's going to happen or who's going to be there so that they kind of understand what's up and coming. When we orient our child about when we're going to connect next, which is in the morning, it makes the separation easier because they have that to hold on to. That becomes an anchor, okay? So I hope you guys develop wonderful, nurturing, delicious bedtime routines with your children. Savor them, enjoy them, they're precious. And guess what, guys? They do end up going away. My son is older now, and he's going to bed after me, so we don't have a bedtime routine anymore. And that's something that I look back on and I can totally cherish. Those were wonderful years up until he was 15 years old, where we get to read together and we get to hang out together before bed and talk about things. And that's the idea, that you have this wonderful opportunity to make connections, and those connections become emotionally fueling, and it sets everybody off for a better relationship. So I will leave you with that in this video, and I hope to see you in the next one. See you there.